America was once torn apart by division, hatred, and war. But there was one man who stood up, faced it all, and changed history forever. A man born into poverty, self-taught, and who failed countless times before reaching greatness. That man was Abraham Lincoln, the president who led America through its darkest times. But do you know what he had to sacrifice to get there? His journey was not just a tale of success, but one of the greatest tragedies in American history. Travel back to 1809 to a remote wilderness in Kentucky, USA. This was a time when the country was still young and life was incredibly harsh, especially for people with low incomes. Inside a tiny log cabin surrounded by the untamed wilderness, a baby's first cry echoed on February 12th, 1809. That child was Abraham Lincoln, the man who would one day change the course of America. Lincoln's father, Thomas Lincoln, was a hard-working but illiterate carpenter. He toiled endlessly to provide for his family, yet they barely had enough to survive. His mother, Nancy Hanks, was gentle yet resilient. Despite their poverty, she instilled a sense of morality and compassion in her son. Lincoln's childhood had no fancy toys or abundant meals. He grew up in nature, playing in the open fields and working hard from a young age. Tragedy struck when Lincoln was just 9 years old. His mother fell victim to a mysterious illness known as milk sickness, a deadly poisoning from contaminated food, with no cure at the time. On the day his mother passed away, Lincoln was so heartbroken that he couldn't even cry. Instead, he quietly gathered wooden planks and built a cross with his own hands to place on her grave. This was a moment that would change his life forever. I owe all that I am or hope to be to my angel mother. Before he could even recover from the pain of losing his mother, Lincoln and his sister faced yet another hardship. Their father, unable to bear his wife's death, left home for months, leaving the two children to fend for themselves in the bitter cold of winter. On those freezing nights, Lincoln could only wrap himself in a thin blanket, holding on to his sister for warmth. These were the most difficult days of his life. Lincoln's father returned a year later with a new wife, Sarah Bush Johnston. However, unlike Lincoln feared, this woman would change his life for the better. When his mother passed away, Lincoln felt as if he had lost his only support. But then, a woman entered his life, Sarah Bush Johnston, his stepmother. She brought warmth to the family and gave him something even more precious. But in a remote place like Kentucky, books were a luxury. Lincoln used charcoal to write on wooden planks without paper, recording everything he learned. He spent hours reading every day, whether in a barn, a field, or by the firelight. The more one reads, the more one can think independently. But knowledge alone could not put food on the table. Like every frontier boy, Lincoln had to work from an early age, chopping wood, farming, and ferrying boats to earn a living. He labored from dawn till dusk, but even as his hands grew rough with toil, he always carried a book with him. Some said Lincoln didn't sleep as much as other children. He stayed up late into the night, reading, writing, thinking. But one thing was sure, he never stopped learning. Without money for formal schooling, Lincoln taught himself law. He read every book he could find, carefully jotting down notes with passion and dedication. He didn't just read, he trained himself in debate and public speaking. This was not just about hard work, it was about an unbreakable will. From a poor boy chopping wood, Lincoln had become a man with a grand vision. He didn't just want to change his life, he wanted to change America. But Lincoln's journey was only beginning. The boy who once swung an axe now dreamed of reshaping society. And soon he would step onto the political stage, where he would write a new chapter in America's history. At 22, Abraham Lincoln decided to leave his hometown in search of a new future. No money, no status, no guide. He had only one thing, a heart that never stopped yearning to learn. My life is but an open book, and I am the one who writes it. Lincoln leaves his hometown for the first time, marking a significant turning point. With sheer determination, he embarks on a challenging journey toward independence. Lincoln started with the most challenging jobs: chopping wood, carrying goods, serving in an inn. He worked tirelessly, learning from everything around him. Over time, the workers began to respect the young man with extraordinary perseverance. No job is too small. Only a mind that refuses to grow truly limits a person. After some time, Lincoln took a job on a flatboat, transporting goods along the Mississippi River. And it was here that he witnessed something that would change his life forever. For the first time, Lincoln saw human beings being bought and sold like mere commodities. The sound of chains clanking and the fear in their eyes all etched deeply into his mind. If slavery is not wrong, then nothing is wrong. Lincoln begins to understand the injustice in society. His anti-slavery sentiments start to take root. In 1832, when war broke out with Native Americans, Lincoln joined the volunteer militia. He wasn't the best fighter, but his integrity and courage earned him the rank of captain. One night, when a Native American prisoner was captured, the soldiers wanted to execute him immediately. Lincoln stepped forward, blocking their way. A soldier sneers, "You're protecting the enemy?" Lincoln, unwavering, "We cannot become as savage as this war itself." A true leader does not need strength, but a heart that understands Lincoln learns leadership through fairness and integrity. Returning from war, Lincoln decided to enter politics, but his poor background made people look down on him. You think you can do politics just because you've read a few books? Abraham Lincoln, defeated in election. Lincoln failed, but instead of giving up, he kept learning and kept standing up. "I may walk slowly, but I never walk backward." Lincoln faces his first political failure, but refuses to give up. On March 4, 1861, Abraham Lincoln took the oath of office as the 16th President of the United States. But from that moment, he knew he was not merely inheriting a nation. He was standing on the brink of a historic storm. All did not welcome Lincoln's victory. 11 Southern states declared secession and formed the Confederacy. There was no turning back now. A civil war was inevitable. A house divided against itself cannot stand. On April 12, 1861, the Civil War officially broke out when Confederate forces fired upon Fort Sumter. The thunderous blasts marked the beginning of the bloodiest conflict in American history. Lincoln now faced a grim reality. His country was no longer united but consumed by hatred and war. These soldiers left home with eyes burning with patriotism, but none truly understood the nightmare awaiting them. One by one, they would march into history or be forever lost on blood-soaked fields. "I will preserve the Union, no matter the cost." The Civil War begins, officially dividing the nation. Lincoln is forced to become a wartime leader, carrying the fate of the country on his shoulders. Battles like Bull Run, Antietam, and Gettysburg were more than numbers on a page. They were mass graves, shattered families, and mothers receiving death letters with no more tears left to cry. "If I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do it. If I could save it by freeing all the slaves, I would do that too. My paramount objective is to save the Union. The war is brutal. No one is truly winning." Lincoln faces immense pressure from both the battlefield and the people. On January 1, 1863, Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, officially declaring all enslaved people in Confederate states free. With this pen stroke, he transformed the war into a fight for freedom and forced the entire world to take notice. If slavery is not wrong, then nothing is wrong. This proclamation was not just a military order. It was a moral statement, an affirmation that America could not exist while tolerating slavery. Lincoln makes the most significant decision of his life, altering the meaning of the war. The Union Army finds renewed strength, turning the war into a fight for freedom. On April 9, 1865, General Robert E. Lee officially surrendered at Appomattox. The bloodiest war in American history had finally come to an end. The wounds of this nation run deep. We must heal them with compassion and kindness. The Civil War ends, but America is no longer the same. Lincoln realizes that the greatest battle still lies ahead, reuniting a broken nation. The war ended less than a week ago, and the nation was still victorious. But a sinister plot had already been set in motion in the shadows. John Wilkes Booth, a famous actor and a radical supporter of slavery, executed the fatal shot to Lincoln's head. A deafening gunshot echoed through the theater, drowning out the laughter and cheers. Lincoln was taken to a nearby house, but the wound was too severe. He took his last breath on the morning of April 15, 1865. A soldier beside him whispered, "Now he belongs to the ages." The entire nation was in mourning. Lincoln's funeral train traveled through multiple states, with millions of people lining up just to see him one last time. The American people grieved for the president who had dedicated his life to preserving the unity and freedom of the nation. Though he was gone, Lincoln's legacy lived on. He united America and laid the foundation for a freer and more just nation. His Emancipation Proclamation changed the fate of millions and inspired generations to come. Do not worry about whether you will fail. Worry about whether you are standing still.